chosen ones, your darkest moment was the activation of your light body. There's a moment in every chosen one's life when everything shatters. The ground disappears from beneath your feet, and the world you thought you knew falls apart in your hands. It's not poetic when it happens, it's brutal, raw, unforgiving. It's the night you cried on the floor with no one around, the day you questioned everything, including your own existence, the season of your life when even breathing felt like a war. And yet, what you didn't realize in that moment, what no one ever told you, was that this collapse was not a punishment, it was a signal, a sacred alarm going off in the deepest part of your being. That was the moment your light body began to activate. Most people will never understand what it means to be chosen. They think it's about being special, about having powers, about being better, but it's not. It's about carrying weight most can't see. It's about feeling things more deeply, being shattered more completely, and still choosing to rise. Being chosen means you were born with a blueprint encoded in your soul, an ancient map that only reveals itself through the destruction of everything superficial. You can't fake your way into activation. You can't fast-track it with affirmations, crystals, or retreats. It happens when your spirit is cracked open wide enough for the light to pour in. And that light isn't from the outside, it's from you. It's always been you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
In that darkest moment, when you thought you were losing everything, you were actually shedding everything that was never truly yours. The identity you built to survive, the masks you wore to fit in, the beliefs you inherited that never felt right, but you clung to because everyone else lived by them. One by one, they fell away. And all that was left was the raw, unfiltered essence of who you really are. That essence is your light body, and it only activates when you have nothing left to hide behind. You may not have seen it, but something changed in you. Maybe you started waking up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing, not from fear, but from something you couldn't name. Maybe you started seeing patterns, feeling energies, noticing synchronicities that made no logical sense but felt deeply real. Maybe your body started to reject things that once sustained you, food, relationships, environments. You didn't go crazy, you went quantum. Your light body began to override the old software. The codes of your soul started to run again. You began to remember. Remembering isn't about past lives or ancient civilizations, though that may come. It's about remembering who you've always been before the world taught you who to be. It's about remembering that you are not a body with a soul. You are a soul that temporarily occupies a body, and when the light body activates, that truth becomes undeniable. You feel everything. You sense what's behind people's words. You know what's coming before it arrives. You feel drawn to silence, to stillness, to the sacred. You stop chasing things and start listening to the pull from within. That pull is your light body guiding you back to your path. But here's what most people won't say. The light doesn't feel like light at first. It burns. It incinerates everything that isn't true. You lose friends, opportunities disappear, people call you distant, cold, different, and they're right. You are different now, because once your light body activates, you can't go back to sleep. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel what you've felt, and you wouldn't want to, because even though the awakening is painful, It's also the most liberating thing you'll ever experience. You began to realize that the pain wasn't a sign of failure, it was the labor pains of your rebirth. The grief wasn't punishment, it was the washing away of false identities. And the loneliness? That was sacred space being cleared for the real connections to arrive. You weren't being abandoned, you were being initiated. Initiated into a level of being that most never touch, a level where you don't just observe the world, you vibrate in alignment with its deepest truths. Look at your life. Look at the moments that nearly ended you. What if those weren't curses? What if they were the doorway to remembrance? What if your breakdown was the beginning of your breakthrough? Not in a cliché way, but in a literal, energetic sense. What if the reason you felt like you were dying is because your old self was dying and your light body was being born in its place? This is not about spiritual aesthetics. This is not about looking enlightened or talking in riddles or pretending to be above it all. This is about embodiment. Real, raw, rooted embodiment of your spiritual essence in your physical form. And that embodiment only begins in the ashes. Only in the places where your ego has nothing left to grasp. That's where the light body emerges, not like a beam of sunshine, but like a silent, powerful force that begins to rearrange your entire field. And once it's online, everything changes. You begin to attract different people. Not because you're trying, but because your frequency is transmitting a new signal. You start receiving downloads, sudden insights, visions, knowings that seem to come from nowhere. Your body becomes highly sensitive and you begin to understand that this isn't weakness. It's your new instrument tuning itself to higher frequencies. You're not broken, you're becoming attuned. So let me ask you something. Something only a chosen one can answer with truth. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the moment your soul took the wheel? What if your darkest night was your light's first breath? When the veil ripped, the supernatural signs that confirmed your awakening. There's a moment, sudden, quiet, or explosive, when the veil between the seen and the unseen thins so much it tears. And when it does, everything you thought was real starts to unravel. It doesn't happen like the movies. There's no dramatic thunderclap. It's usually subtle at first. A glance in the mirror where your eyes don't look like yours. A whisper at the edge of your hearing when no one's around. A pattern in numbers or symbols that repeats so often it can't be coincidence. These are not hallucinations. These are not glitches. These are confirmations. The veil has ripped, and what was once hidden is now leaking through. For the chosen ones, this is not just a phase. It's the beginning of direct contact with your light body's intelligence. You start to see the world differently. Colors feel more alive. Nature speaks to you. You begin to sense the energy behind words, the frequency behind actions, the truth behind the mask people wear. It can be overwhelming at first because your human brain was never trained to comprehend this bandwidth of reality. But your soul, your activated light body, was designed for it. So while your mind tries to rationalize, your body starts to respond. You feel tingles on your skin when spirit is near. You get chills when truth is spoken. You know things before they happen, not because you read them, but because you remembered them from a place outside of time. These signs are not random. They are sacred communication. When clocks stop at certain numbers, when animals show up in strange ways, when you dream of someone and they message you the next day, these are not spooky stories. These are messages from your higher self, from your guides, from the multidimensional parts of you that exist beyond linear logic. The veil ripping allows these energies to reach you more directly, and the more you listen, the more they speak. It's not that the signs weren't there before, it's that you weren't tuned to the frequency to notice them, but now you are. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like something outside of you was orchestrating events with precision beyond chance? Like you were being guided, not by a person, but by a force that sees the entire board? That's not fantasy, that's divine intelligence. The light body, once activated, doesn't just sit dormant, it begins to interact with reality in real time. It becomes a living antenna, receiving and transmitting energy, wisdom, and protection. This is why you started losing interest in things that once felt important, why drama now feels like static, why silence feels like home. You're not becoming boring, you're becoming aligned. But with this alignment comes responsibility, because as the veil thins, your thoughts create faster, your intentions shape your environment more quickly. You begin to realize that your inner world is not private, it's projecting constantly, and the universe is responding. This is why chosen ones often go through a phase of isolation after their awakening, not because they're meant to be alone forever, but because they need time to recalibrate, to detox from the noise of the old world, to learn how to wield their new awareness with care. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. During this time, supernatural signs become your compass. You may hear voices, not in a delusional way, but as soft inner guidance with a clarity that cuts through confusion. You may see light flicker, feel pressure on your forehead, experience time bending around you. These are symptoms of the veil being thinner around you. You're operating on a different layer of reality now, and while others may not see it, you feel it. That's what matters. Trust your perception. It's been refined through your pain, your silence, your resilience. You begin to understand that the veil wasn't just between you and spirit, it was also between you and yourself. The parts of you that were once compartmentalized, your intuition, your inner child, your shadow, your higher self, are now coming back into wholeness. Integration begins, and it's in that integration that the signs become even clearer. Your body becomes your oracle. Your emotions become your messages. You no longer ask for signs. You become the sign. You walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, not because you're trying, but because your light body is now active and broadcasting truth wherever it goes. So let me ask you a question, one that no one else can answer for you. What signs have been following you, nudging you, asking you to remember what you came here to do? Not the signs you wished for, but the ones that wouldn't leave you alone. The dreams, the numbers, the unshakable feelings, the pull toward something greater. What if those weren't random? What if they were the coordinates to your destiny? Temple of the flesh. How your pain was preparing your body to carry divine light. Your body was never just a shell, never just a vehicle to get you from one mundane task to another. It is a temple, sacred, intelligent, ancient. And though the world has conditioned us to disconnect from it, to treat it as flawed, weak, or separate from our spiritual path, the truth is far more profound. Your body was crafted to hold divine light, but before it can carry that level of frequency, it must be purified, and that fire is pain. You felt it. The aching in your bones that no doctor could explain, the tightness in your chest that came not from injury, but from grief unspoken, the back that broke under the weight of carrying roles you were never meant to carry. These weren't random, They were sacred signals. Every tremor, every illness, every breakdown was a message. Your light body wasn't just activating in your spirit, it was trying to anchor into your flesh. And for that to happen, everything trapped inside, the trauma, the ancestral wounds, the emotional toxins, had to rise to the surface. Pain was not your enemy, it was your spiritual cleanse. The chosen ones are often born into bodies that feel too heavy, too sensitive, too reactive, because those bodies are preparing. They are being trained to become living altars. You weren't broken as a child, you were breaking open. That anxiety, that tension, that feeling of not fitting into your own skin, it was your system resisting density. And now that your light body is waking up, your physical body is responding. You may feel more exhausted than ever, more sensitive to sound, light, food, energy. That's not weakness, that's recalibration. We live in a culture that tells us to numb the pain, medicate it, distract from it. But the deeper path, the path of the chosen, is to listen to the pain, to sit with it, to ask it what it's here to teach. Because every sensation in your body is consciousness speaking. When you finally stop running and begin to listen, something miraculous happens. Your body starts to heal, not just physically, but spiritually. It becomes a vessel for light, a transmitter of truth, a bridge between dimensions. The reason you had to go through so much pain is because your body is becoming a conductor, and conductors must be cleared of interference. Your heartbreak, your betrayal, your illness, they weren't punishments, they were initiations. Every tear you shed was an offering, every scar a sigil. You've been turning your flesh into a sacred script, and now the divine can write through you. The irony is that most people think spiritual awakening is an escape from the body, but real awakening happens through the body. When your pain becomes a portal, when your breath becomes a prayer, when your heartbeat becomes a chant that syncs with the rhythm of the universe, you begin to walk differently, eat differently, speak differently, not because you were told to, but because your body remembers its sacred role. You start to crave movement, stillness, nature, water, sunlight. These aren't trends, they're prescriptions from your higher self. So I ask you, what would happen if you stopped seeing your pain as a flaw and started seeing it as the fire that forged your temple? What if your illness was a coded message? What if your fatigue was the sign that your body was integrating light far beyond what you were taught to believe was possible? What if everything you hated about your body was actually holy? Your light body is not just a glow in your aura, it's a living fire in your cells. And your pain was never in the way of your awakening, it was the way. The final frequency. You are the portal, not the seeker. There comes a point in the journey when everything you've been searching for, every answer, every sign, every glimpse of the divine, reflects not out there in some distant dimension, but right here within you. You stop running, you stop chasing, you stop trying to earn your place in the universe, and you begin to remember, you are not the seeker, you are the portal. You are the opening through which the infinite expresses itself into form. The final frequency isn't something you reach like a mountaintop. It's something you become when you surrender to the truth that you've always carried the code. The chosen ones were never meant to follow paths laid out for others. You were meant to build the path by walking it. Your light body, now activated, is not a badge. It's a responsibility. You no longer need to wait for permission to be who you came here to be. The frequency you now carry is not just healing you, it's recalibrating everyone you come into contact with. That's why you've triggered people without saying a word. That's why you've been misunderstood. You're not repeating the old frequency of fear and conformity. You're broadcasting something new, something ancient, something that reminds others on a cellular level of what they've forgotten. When you realize you are the portal, you stop negotiating with doubt. You stop explaining your intuition to people who are still addicted to logic. You stop watering down your truth to make it easier to digest. You begin to understand that your presence is your offering. Your frequency is your message. Your life is the ritual. You become the embodiment of the sacred, not by trying to be perfect, but by being fully real. And in that authenticity, you unlock the final frequency, sovereignty. Sovereignty is not isolation. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's the ability to stand in the center of your being and know, without needing confirmation, that you are aligned with your source. You are not here to be saved. You are not here to be fixed. You are here to remember who you are so deeply that you no longer collapse into the illusions around you. The light body doesn't just radiate light, it holds formless intelligence. Plastic, it's the part of you that knows how to move without a map, how to speak truth without fear, how to hold space without trying to control the outcome. You stop asking, "What do I do?" and start listening to the silence between your thoughts. You start recognizing that your frequency is already doing the work. You walk into rooms and shift the energy without saying a word. People feel something when they're around you. A calm, a mirror, a challenge. That's not ego, that's your field. That's you becoming the portal. You are no longer just in the world. You are of the world and beyond it simultaneously. And as this realization settles into your bones, a strange peace arises. You no longer fear being different. You no longer fear being alone, because you now understand deeply, completely, that you were never truly alone. The divine has always whispered through your intuition. Your ancestors have always walked beside you. Your higher self has always been guiding you through every breakdown, every redirection, every synchronicity. And now you see it, you feel it, you are it. So let me leave you with this final question, not as a riddle, but as a key. If you stopped believing you had to find the light, and instead accepted that you are the light, what would you do differently starting today? Not tomorrow, not next year, now. What would shift if you lived like the portal had already opened, because it has, through you? You came here to remember. You came here to awaken. You came here to activate not just your light body, but the light in others. And now it's done. You're not waiting for a sign anymore. You are the sign.